Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Lewinter, licensed acupuncturist at Metro Acupuncture in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Lewinter. I'm also a licensed acupuncturist at Metro Acupuncture in Atlanta, Georgia.
You're also an acupuncture at Metro Acupuncture? All right, Mom. Listen, you know, the thing is, kids can be cruel, and they can tease and they can tease and they can tease their parents. So I apologize. Are you excited about today's topic?
I am excited about today's topic. It's a question that is often asked.
It is often asked of me. Do you get asked this question?
Yes, frequently.
Yeah, okay. So it's a real simple question, but I've been in my mind preparing for it. I realize that there's a lot to say about it.
Hmm.
Okay, so what is the question? The question is that both my mom and I get asked is, do you give yourself acupuncture? And I can see how it could be a reasonable thing. Like, here I am, I'm giving the patient a treatment, and they think to themselves, like, this is just putting in needles. Do you give yourself a treatment? So when patients ask you that, what do you say?
Well, I always start out with I give myself acupuncture if I wake up in the middle of the night and stub my toe. I might put a needle or two in. But other than that, I do not give myself acupuncture. When I was in school learning this trade, one of the things that one of the professors said is that you need to allow yourself to have acupuncture all the time because you never need to forget what it's like to be a patient.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I happen to agree. And I also are friend of mine that I met in acupuncture school. Delin Best has a kind of a unusual name. It's Deleon Best. He is practicing acupuncture in the Charlotte area in North Carolina. Best Acupuncture. He's the best. And Delin shared with me a few months ago that he gives himself an acupuncture treatment every single Saturday. He just does some basic points,
Mhm.
and he notices that if he misses more than a week or two, he can feel the difference. I would like us to kind of bookmark that and go back to it in just
Mhm.
a second. And before we talk about that, I'd like to share with you a saying that says, "A physician who treats himself has a fool for a patient," meaning that even professionals like doctors should seek external help when it comes to their own care, as self-treatment can lead to poor judgment or biased decisions. So this is an interesting thing because I do believe, like you said, like if you wake up in the middle of the night and you stub your toe, you could put some points in for reducing inflammation. And
Yes.
I do believe that if we take time to be still and we want to meditate or rest for 30 minutes, that can only be enhanced by a few acupuncture needles at certain points. So from one perspective, I believe that a physician who treats himself has a fool for a patient. But if a physician has cut themselves, they need to put on a Band-Aid, they know how to put on a Band-Aid, or even more, they've cut themselves and they know how to sew a stitch. So it's not just a black and white kind of thing. And I love that my friend Delin cares for himself. So I wanted to just kind of play it from that angle and hear what your thoughts are based on what I just said.
Well, I think that acupuncture has been either acupuncture or using moxa, which is the herb that heats points, has been done for thousands of years by people, not necessarily professional acupuncturists. Very often, that shaman would come into villages maybe once every 6 months, maybe once a year. He'd offer herbs, he'd offer acupuncture. But in the meantime, people treat it themselves. They knew how to do that, or maybe even were given points in which they should do that the last time the acupuncturist made the journey to their village. So I think that there's a lot to be said about taking the time and saying, yes, I think that this would be a good treatment for myself. That saying also goes for lawyers. The client that is going to be his own lawyer is a fool for, fool for a client. So I think that many times there's that belief that we cannot help ourselves, that we have to go outside of ourselves to get the support and help we need.
So there is the belief that we need to do that, or
Currently in our culture, there's a belief that says you need to go find somebody else, and I think another person to provide your care. And I think that there's a lot that we can do for ourselves
in that
before we go
And
to
that's, yeah,
another person.
exactly. Yeah. So we care for ourselves by making good food choices. We care for
That's right.
ourselves by making sure that we get rest. We have a peaceful environment. And why not? In the most simple way, put in a point or two and just get that whatever the acupuncture is doing, whether it's decreasing inflammation, increasing blood flow to all parts of the body, providing deep rest and neurological reset. Why wouldn't we want to do a very, very formulaic, basic treatment for ourselves on a regular basis?
Yes.
Now, if something is much more complex, then it's about getting help. And also, I know that you get regular treatments. You do it like a trade
Hmm.
relatively regularly, at least once a month, right?
Yeah, about every 6 weeks.
About every
About
six
every
weeks.
6 weeks.
And what's that like, knowing that you're giving a treatment and you're getting a treatment about every 6 weeks? What's your
Mhm.
experience with that been?
Well, it's been very, very favorable for both of us. She comes from Blue Ridge, yeah, Blue Ridge, LJ area, and she comes down because we knew each other when I was in school, and so she gets wonderful benefit from the treatment. I the same.
Yeah,
The last time she was down here, I was kind of struggling with some things and was, just highly agitated. And she did, a back shoe point. And
right.
within a couple hours, it was like all that struggle and tension and even the pain in my stomach went away.
Yeah,
So
and what you're talking about are, when you say back shoe, it's a back point. Like, I can't imagine a needle and
I
trying to
could
like
not do
put
that
it,
to
like
myself.
even the best intention, like, you're just not going to be able. So there's points that we can't get to when we treat ourselves, and the hardest person to see is sometimes to see ourselves.
That's right. Because I was just going through a little bit of an issue and I did do some acupuncture using a tuning fork instead of needles. Um,
Hmm.
but it was that particular treatment that I needed and just kind of was oblivious to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So it's sometimes hard to know what we need. Now, just to add in, I hope, a little bit more depth to our conversation. Another way of thinking about it is, the saying is, the shoemaker's children go barefoot. So so here we are. Okay, I got into the this medicine, East Asian medicine, because I had just had a amazing, um, uh, profound, deep, relaxing experience like I had never had before. I left the acupuncturist office feeling totally euphoric, and I thought to myself, I want to be able to provide this experience to other people. And you
Mm.
shared with me about how you got into it out of interest with helping a shoulder pain, and I think a somewhat similar type of experience. And you wanted to give. We both have found ourselves in roles of caregivers, and we want to be able to help people feel better. And this is an amazing medicine to do that. Now, the shoemaker also loves probably people having shoes and repairing. We don't see as many shoemakers anymore, but people be in shoes and want to buy new shoes and repair shoes. So, but how is it that the shoemakers' children are going barefoot?
Well, the shoemaker is so busy making shoes for everyone else and repairing shoes for everyone else that he doesn't think to give himself or his children a pair of shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You can.
So it's that kind of philosophy, and this is exactly what we were talking about, is we forget. We forget we have these tools that we can use for our own benefit.
That's right. And whether it be a limited benefit, we have the idea that it is much easier to dig the well before we're thirsty.
That's right.
I
That's right.
don't want to be out there with a shovel trying to get some water when, I'm dehydrated. And another acupuncturist, a friend of mine, John Cohen, he says that preparation is the ancestor of spontaneity. So
Mhm.
we dig the well before we're thirsty, and we prepare so we can be spontaneous, but we need to be able to help ourselves in a little way, and remember that we have this tool to be able to help
Yeah.
ourselves, so we don't need these, and that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I know I'm filled with all sorts of sayings here today, but hopefully they're kind of tying into one thing.
Definitely they are. And again, it goes back to remembering that we have the tools to help ourselves.
Right.
I know that you probably have heard this, and there's a wonderful cream. It's a Chinese herbal cream that if you get burned, you're cooking, you get a burn.
A Chingwan Hun.
Yes,
Yeah.
that
I've actually done a video on that, and it's on the Metro Acupuncture's YouTube channel.
So I give people a tube of this or a jar of it,
Sure.
and then I'll see them at sometime later, and they have this terrible burn on their hand, and I'm going like, didn't I give you a bottle or a jar of? And they go, yeah. Oh, I forgot all about it. So here this like literally a third-degree burn, that could have been healed before it ever even blistered and caused any real pain. But we forget we have these tools.
Yes, yes, yeah, exactly. All the different tools that we have. And now, what would you suggest to someone to remember? How would one remember that they have these tools available to them? Whether it be exercise or eating well, getting sleep, things like even creating a beautiful environment, like buying someone buying yourself flowers, or being still and meditating with some acupuncture needles. What would you suggest for one to be able to remember that they have these tools?
Well, I think that's an excellent question, Mark, because what I often tell my patients is that whatever it happens to be, it's a practice. And you've got to begin someplace. And I'm going to use this example. It's about going to bed at a specific time. And you just have to be in that mindset. You just have to say, this is important to me. This is important to my health. This is important to my spouse. This is important to our lifestyle. This is important. And you just make a decision that this is, and that's why when people come in and they'll talk about reading a book with all these recommendations in it, and I'll often say, just pick one thing. Is it going to bed on time? Is it stopping eating at one time? What is it that resonate with you that you can do just one thing? As we feel better, after doing that one thing, as we feel better, then we start looking for other ways to start feeling better. So I'm not sure that that answered your question, but that's my recommendation, is just to make the decision, this is what I'm going to do. This one thing is what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
And
it's definitely just like you said, a decision, and not an easy decision when we have things that are much more seemingly
yes,
exciting or
yes,
tempting than caring for oneself, like going to bed on time or sitting in a chair still and
yes.
being present with what's so, and remembering these things. It's different. We're all almost very much the same, but we're slightly different, and we have, little preferences, but finding those things that help you bring yourself back to you, help you feel good and restored and refreshed.
And I think there's a factor of being mindful, is that yes, I'm making this decision to do this one thing, and be mindful about it. It's
Yep.
like, yeah, this is important.
Yep.
I want to do this. And that's why I always recommend start with just one thing. And as you start feeling better, you'll want to do more, and then you can add that on. But if you start with too much, you get frustrated and you're not mindful.
Yeah, and the routine part is also really helpful. Taking a page from Deleuze's book, where he's every Saturday he's
Every
really kind of
Saturday.
a creature,
Yeah.
and it's like that's his time where he's going to do that one, that thing. So, and like I was saying with John, tying it back in, is the preparation, so that you can experience the beauty, the beauty of life, and feel spontaneous and have a lot of energy, because you've made those preparations to eat healthfully, to be still, to get a good amount of rest. You have a good foundation.
Well, you've crafted that into your day, whether it's once a week or once a day or whatever, but you've crafted it into your day. We do all kinds of things like that. Like very, very few of us forget to go to work, you know,
Right.
because we've crafted that into our schedule, into our time that
That's right.
so it's the same thing. It seems different, but it's exactly the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Well said. Well said. All right. So I think right now, the answer, if I was asked by a patient, do I give myself an acupuncture treatment? I would say yes, but not enough, not frequently enough. And I would never do it for something that was um, uh, more complex than just basic self-care.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got that talked about, and I'm glad that we got to discuss this topic. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know I did, and we'll
Very
pick it
much.
up next time.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah.
you all
And of
for listening.
course, if you're interested in knowing more about acupuncture and how acupuncture can be good for you, maybe even acupressure, you might not be doing acupuncture at home, but you could do some acupressure at home. We can teach you that at Metro Acupuncture in Atlanta, Georgia, and you can schedule with us at metroacupuncture.com.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye.